The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
Welcome to Story by Story, a show that celebrates the human spirit. I'm Kate Dudding. Usually Joe Doolittle is here, but he was unable to join us today. But we're glad that you are here with us. And also we're here with us today is our special guest, Fran Berger from Castleton-on-Hudson. Fran, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you, Kate. It's good to be here.
I'm always happy when I'm with Fran. I don't know, you're one of those people that in addition to being a fabulous storyteller,
I'm just happy.
You're just happy. Okay. So it's not just me, with me, but especially with me. Okay.
Especially with you.
Wow, this is all just drivel. Okay, we're here to talk about storytelling and its uses and what an exceptional art form it is.
First, let's say, good morning, doodly do, good morning to you.
From the musical Singing in the Rain.
Absolutely,
Yes.
One of my favorites.
Yes. And usually Joe asks me the question, what have you done interesting in storytelling or run across in storytelling in the past month?
Ooh, I know what's up.
So can you answer that question?
Well, I think that Kate got to go see the Ida O'Keeffe exhibit opening, and she's got something to tell us about it.
Okay, back to me. Yes, this summer at the Clark Art Institute, one of their 4 summer exhibits is called Ida O'Keeffe, Escaping the Shadow of Georgia. But I went to the opening talk on July 6th, and the curator from Dallas was there. And she called her talk something different, about unrealized ambitions, unforeseen difficulties, something on that order. And she told the story that I didn't find evident, and maybe I missed it in the catalog that I've been studying for several months, on how the exhibit came to be. In 2013, so 6 years ago, she was working as a curator in the Dallas Museum of Art. She was visiting a private collector and saw a piece of art on the wall. And she couldn't figure out who might have done it. She thought of Arthur Dove, who was a painter in the 1920s, 30s. And she said, is that a piece by Arthur Dove? And they said, no, it's by Ida O'Keeffe. Who's Ida O'Keeffe? Well, one of George's younger sisters. And she was so excited about that piece. She shared it with her colleagues at the Dallas Museum of Art. They were intrigued that is this a new find? So they agreed to fund a research project. And in May of 2014, there was an article in the New York Times about it, which generated a wealth of information coming to this curator, Sue Canterbury. And she concluded her talk by saying, Ida O'Keeffe, she went to graduate school at Columbia in art when she was in her early 40s. Yeah. She graduated in like 1933. That was the Depression. unforeseen obstacles. Well, you don't, so she had a very hard time finding a job. She moved 13 times in 10 years, the next 10 years, substituting for people who were on leave. Because in the Depression, people didn't give up a good job. But, people had a, medical issue or, sabbatical or whatever. So she was, but she moved 13. You cannot develop your art if you're struggling to put food in your mouth. And Georgia and her very influential husband, Alfred Stieglitz, went out of their way to not promote her. Alfred Stieglitz, who owned a prestigious gallery in New York City, he found out that a couple of years after she graduated from Columbia, that another gallery was planning to do a solo exhibition of her work. And he bullied the owner of that gallery to cancel that exhibition.
Oh.
So not only did she have the Depression to deal with, the Great Depression, not a personal one, and just the problem of being a woman artist. They were not, even now, it's not an even playing field, she said. But she had opposition from people close to her who were very influential in the art world. So she said, she concluded with, Ida O'Keeffe is an example of women who had great dreams, but no advocates. Mm-hmm. So you can see the potential at the Clark and different styles that she was trying out. So I'll be giving a couple of talks on that. And if you want, you can see my website, katedudding.com. But
wow.
So
That's
thank
so
you for
interesting.
asking. It's quite a find, and she felt. And in fact, the director of the Clark, I heard him talking to somebody after he passed by and said, "It's crazy what she was able to do. That she's, this is a whole new area that no one knew about."
Goodness.
Yeah. So.
The way of the world toward women.
Yeah. 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 But Fran, now I know you as a teller of personal stories. Mm-hmm. Fran's one of 8 children. Grew up in Tornado Alley in Oklahoma. So you can imagine there's a wealth of stories to be plumbed there. And she also, how did you get interested in stories? You told me a little bit before the camera started recording.
Well, I lived at the public library. I was so close to our librarian that she let me up into the mezzanine area where she kept all of her most private, precious works, and she'd let me sit there and read, and she would also let me help her reorganize. And so I kind of became a little side volunteer at the library and would take home a minimum 13 books at a time. That's the most she'd check out. And reading was my passion and my love, and that's where I found the Grimm's brothers and Hans Christian Andersen, and fell in love with fairy tales and folk tales and science fiction and fantasy. And if you wanted to find me on a summer day, look in my bedroom, you'd find me with pillows piled behind me and my nose in a book. And I fell in love with stories from all over the world, fairy tales and folk tales, and today I decided that I would bring folk tales from around the planet. And so that's my focus for right now. And I lived inside those. When the nice part about it is that you could separate from this family of 10 people running around with all the noise and climb inside that book and just be there with all those characters and imagine yourself doing what they're doing. So you could be everything from a pirate to Brer Rabbit to God knows what. You could be dancing in those red shoes. You can be doing anything at any time, anywhere.
Oh, but not today. No red shoes today.
No.
Well, actual red shoes. Virtual, who knows? Because that's where you were talking about virtual reality.
Well, it was virtually a reality for me.
Yes. I know sometimes I've had the same experience with books, and reading a series and then finding out the author has died, and that's it.
There's not another one coming?
There's
what?
In fact, I was reading a mystery series. I digress, but I was reading a mystery series, and I figured out the author was writing about Clifton Park. There were some little tidbits, and one of them was that the school teachers like to hang out at the Rusty Nail, a bar, and that's what the school teachers do in Clifton Park. And so I knew that from a friend of mine. So I found an email address on her, and I wrote, I love your books, but you must have lived in Clifton Park at some point in time, right? And she wrote back, yes, I've moved the town, I've changed some things, but yes, indeed. And I said, and is there going to be another book? I also asked, is there going to be another book in the series? Because there had been a gap in, years. She said, well, no, I think I've told their stories, and I imagine that they are living, they're living out their lives in the world that I created, and they're happy. And I go, okay, well, I guess that'll have to satisfy me.
Oh, rats!
Oh, rats, though. Yes. Oh, rats. So, yes, stories are just wonderful.
Yes, they are, and folktales especially, they express the people they come from. And they give us hope, and they right wrongs, and give us surprise gifts, show us compassions that we might not otherwise see, help us to understand that the world has more to offer than what's right in front of your nose, than whatever your limitations are. It lifts you up, it takes you out, it lets you learn, it lets you grow, it lets you fly where you might otherwise plod along.
And it's, I think, a prevalent idea now that folktales, those were just for children. But that was not the case at all. These were stories that defined their cultures.
Absolutely. Yeah. Defined the cultures. They widened the possibilities within a culture. Mm-hmm. And very often they were social commentary. Mm-hmm. They righted a lot of wrongs. They brought the poor up, the downtrodden were freed, people were given gifts, but also found gifts within themselves and within each other. Mm-hmm. And so they were a little bit of a revolutionary tool as well. And if you really take a strong look at the folk tales and in cultures, you will find, for instance, Red Riding Hood mm-hmm. was a commentary on rape. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the older versions, mm-hmm. It's the Victorian version that has the woodcutter come in and save the day. But in an older version that I found, she escapes her. She eventually notices that it isn't really Grandma in the bed, and she talks her way. She says she has to go to the bathroom, and it's. And so the wolf lets her go, but ties a rope to her ankle. Mm-hmm. Well, she gets out of sight. She unties the rope and runs for the river. Mm-hmm. She gets to the river, and there's some laundresses there washing sheets in the river. And they say, "What's wrong?" And she explains. They said, "Oh, well, we can help you." And they spread out their sheets across the river, and they do something, and she can walk across the river on the sheets.
Oh.
And so then the wolf comes along. Have you seen a little girl? Yes. Oh, I've got to get across the river. We'll help. And when he's in the middle of the river, they undo the magic, and the sheets collapse, and well, the wolf is never seen again. Yay!
Yay! See, there you go, feminism.
Yes, yes. And And apparently somebody who was transcribing the story or retelling the story decided it was missing a piece.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
You don't have a male hero.
yes. So, and something you said reminded me of. Oh dear. Well, if it's important, it'll come back. But it wasn't a Red Riding Hood. Anyways.
But over and over and over.
Oh, I know what it was.
Oh, what is it?
In Africa, there are some tribes that have a member of their tribe called the griot. And it's a storyteller, but it's also a healer. And the story goes that a television was brought to a village. And for a week, the people were watching it. And then when the benefactor who had given them the television came back, they weren't watching it anymore. And the benefactor said, "Well, why have you stopped watching it?" And they said, "Well, yes, there are stories on the television, but the griot knows the stories we need to hear."
Yes, that's right. Hence the folk tales.
Hence the folk tales.
Yes.
And some people, lucky people, were raised, and when they, as a child, did something wrong, their parent would say, "Well, let me tell you a story."
Yes. Yes.
That pointed out it's really better to be generous or kind or whatever they hadn't done right then.
They are teaching tools.
Yes.
And most Native American tales are teaching tools. Some of them are to pass history on, and most of them are teaching tools.
And then there are sacred tales that really have been kept within the cultures.
Yes, and are not shared out.
Right. Which
And the Kachina does a lot of what the griot does in the Southwest. And I'm not remembering whether it was Hopi or which tribe, so I won't say, with the Kachina. I would like to take us, let's see.
Yes. It's about time we stopped talking about stories and
told one. This one comes from Eastern Europe. It's a tale of gypsies. And there is a very, very popular story that's worldwide called The Magic Box. But this one is not the same story.
Same title, different story.
Long ago, there was a young couple, a husband and a wife. They were gypsies, and they were so deeply in love. The hold of one another's hand sent light through each of them. To kiss was to know heaven. And they lived near a pine forest where it met the beechwood trees down by a stream. And this is where they spent their summers in a tent. And in the winter, there was a mill up on the hill, and that's what they occupied to keep the winds from them. And thus they lived happily for over a year, but there was no child coming forth. There was no child. And the woman, she would go out and collect the beech nuts, and her tears would fall as she saw the little string of ants with tiny, tiny bundles on their backs. "Oh, look at you, the little bundles. You have the babies on your back." And she would see the chickadees feeding their young. "Oh, you have the babies to feed. If only I could have a baby of my own." And she wept, standing before a large beechwood tree where she'd been collecting beechwood nuts. And of a sudden, a bowl on that tree opened like a window or a door. And there materialized before her a face so ancient she couldn't tell what it was, till its features became clearer, and brown, piercing eyes looked at her, and a soft mouth spoke. And there was silvery, streaming hair, like a river flowing down the back of a very old, wizened woman whose face was so deeply carved with wrinkles, and whose skin was so brown that perhaps she was a living walnut. No, she was in a beechwood tree. And she spoke in a kind voice, "Why are you weeping, woman?" "Oh, mother of the tree, I am so sad. I had the love of my life, and yet I'm not able to bear a child for him. Even the ants and the birds, they can have their children, but I don't bear one." "Ah, cease your weeping. I will assist you." "Will, how will that happen?" "Listen to me. When it comes the next full moon, you know it is coming autumn, and there are pumpkins to be had. Make your beechwood necklaces, and you take some into the village and trade for a round, full pumpkin. You have some goats. You bring home the pumpkin. You open it. And then you fill it with the milk from your goats, and you drink it down to the last drop. And that night, be with your husband. And 9 months from that time, you will have a beautiful baby boy." "Oh, I will do as you say." And she started to turn, but she said, wait, I have a gift for you." And she reached down in beside her, and she brought up a beautiful carved beechwood box that you could open and close. And it had a little opening in the middle of it. She said, "Take this box, keep it with you. When this child grows to be a full-grown man, when he is ready to take his way in the world, be sure he takes it with him. It will bring him good fortune." She took the box and she ran back to her tent, and she found her husband and told him all that had befallen, and they waited anxiously for that full moon. So he gathered wood and he sold it. She made beechwood necklaces, and that's how they kept themselves. And that full moon coming up, she took her necklaces into the village, and she found the most perfect round pumpkin, which she immediately traded for and brought back and did exactly as this woman had told her. Now, what I forgot to say is that Matuja was this spirit of the beechwood. She did tell her, "My name is Matuja." And so she thanked Matuja and prayed that this would be so, and indeed it was. As the spring came forth into summer, there was born in that tent the most beautiful, bouncing baby boy, and they named him Baktalo, which means happy one. And so they took him to the stream, and they dipped him in. It was the gypsy version of a baptism. And Baktalo, he was named. And strong he grew, and happy, with snapping brown eyes and quick feet and a quicker smile and a big open heart. Now Baktalo had a special gift of speech and hearing with all the animals of the forest. He could understand badger and bear, bunny and bird. And he wandered in under the undergrowth and through the bracken and into the woods, and never ever got lost, where he was taught every pathway by his friends, the animals and the birds. Even the snakes were his friends. And it came to be, hard times fell upon the family, and hard times fell upon the village, and the people were not able to do much in the way of trading. Food was getting to be very hard to come by. Baktalo by now was 13 or 14. And thus it went for a few years where they almost froze up in the mill and began to take parts of the mill apart to burn it for heat. And Baktalo came into his 16th year. Things had begun to even out. Mama and Papa could make it on their own. And Baktalo said, "It is time for me to go into the world. I must go explore by myself. I must find what is there for me." "Oh, Baktalo." But his father agreed. And as he was packing his bag to go, his mother brought out the box. This was given by the spirit of the beechwood tree, who made it possible for you to come to this world. Keep it with you. She said it will bring you good fortune. Baktalo nodded and put it in his pack with all his other things and kissed his mama and his papa goodbye and headed southward through the forest. And he went, oh my goodness, a full league, 20 miles, before it was that he met an old badger. Baktalo, how nice to see you again. Come sit by the fire with me, said the old badger. Oh, I have news for you. What are you doing? I have gone to seek my fortune in the world. Oh, I have even better news for you. Just south of here, 2 leagues hence, why there is the tent of the Forest King, and he has put out a proclamation. His beautiful daughter will be given to anybody who brings forth and shows the king that which he's never seen, that which is new. I will be the one to do that. Oh, I'd go myself if I wasn't so old. Oh, thank you, Badger, for this. And so they passed a wonderful night visiting and eating. And the birds went, and they led him through the shortest cut down toward the enchanted forest. The king of the forest, for he indeed had enchantment around his huge gathering, and the trees were as big as any Baktalo had ever seen. And he strode in with his walking stick, and it was eventide, and he came to the tent of the king of the forest, and he said, "Let me in, I want to see the king." And the guard said, "No. But it is my right to see the king. I wish to show him that which has never been seen before." "I'm sorry, but in the evening the king listens to the forest's murmur, and no one disturbs him. You must come back in the morning." Okay, so it goes. And so off he walked, and along the lake he heard splashing and giggling, and he crept forward, and there, bathing, was the most beautiful young woman he had ever laid eyes on. Her hair was shiny like a raven's, long down her back, and as she splashed, he saw her skin was so soft and beautiful, and her lips were red. He was in love, and yes, of course, it was the princess promised. Oh my goodness. He was certain that he would be the one to win her hand or her heart. And he went off into the woods to make himself a bed for the night. He tossed and turned. He was so excited to get to the tent in the morning that just after the king had his breakfast, Baktalo was first in line. "You may enter." And in he went. And he bowed low before the king. And the king said, "Another one. I have seen so many young men come. I have had nothing to look forward to." "Oh, will not be so with me, sire." "Well, what have you to show me? What have you to tell me that's never been heard, or that which has never been seen?" "Oh, my dear king, only tell me where to go, or what to do, and I will bring that to you." "Fool! You're supposed to be ready when you arrive." "I cannot take this anymore. Lock him away." And so the guards dragged the very surprised Baktalo off to a large oak tree, at the base of which was a huge stone. It took 6 men to pull that stone back, and when they did, they threw Baktalo and his gear in under there and put the stone over it again. And there he was, in the dark, dank root system, in a small cave, cold and damp, wondering just how the heck he'd get out of here. What have I done? What have I done? And he sat there almost shivering when all of a sudden, soft sounds came next to him. And all of a sudden, there were warm things cuddling against his legs, and moles were there. "Baktalo, we will take care of you. We will keep you warm. We won't let you freeze." And they gathered around him, and he sat there wondering what to do. "Oh, just stay close to us. We will care for you. Take your food you have from your pack. Eat something. Rest." And he fell asleep. And when he woke, he stretched. And he dug in his pack and found the wooden box. He took it out and he shook it and said, "A lot of good you've done me. Good fortune? I have no good fortune." When all of a sudden the box began to glow, and he sat it down before him, and out of that box rose the face and body of an old woman with a stream of silvery hair down her back, a wizened face, brown as walnut and wrinkled as one, dark eyes that looked through him and said, "Baktalo, I am Matuja, and the spirit of the beechwood tree. It is I who helped your mother find your life. I did not lie when I said this box will bring you good fortune. Only do as I say." And she plucked 6 of her hairs and handed them to him. And she said, "Now string them across the opening of this box." And then she took his walking stick and she broke it down to about this size. And she said, "Here, string a hair, 2, 3, right here to make it strong." And then she handed that to him. And she said, "Hold the box like this. Now draw string across string." And as he did, he played a slow song, and the moles, they said, "Oh, Baktalo, oh, this is sad, we will cry." And they did. And then he played faster, and they started dancing, and then they started laughing. And while he was doing this, the most beautiful music was coming out and filling up the cave, and indeed out into the forest, so that the king ordered the men to open that cave. "What is this you're doing? Where's this music coming from? Out, young man, come out!" And Baktalo came forth, while Matuja disappeared. "Do what you were doing before." And so we started the slow playing, and soon the entire crowd was weeping. "Please, please, you must change your tune." And he speeded it up, and they began to dance, and then it began to play a very merry tune. And the king said, "You have succeeded where others have failed. You will have the bride, my daughter." And so Baktalo's parents were sent for, and they came, and there was a wedding that lasted 3 days, with much dancing and much music played by Baktalo himself. And my friends, this is how the violin came into this world.
Thank you, Fran. I've never heard that before. and that's a pourquoi story, explaining how something came to be. That's a genre of folk tales. Where did you find it?
I found it in Boulder in a friend's book, and she let me photocopy it, and that's all I've ever had is the photocopy of it, which I can't find, but I've memorized it.
Right. So its source is
Unknown, but it's an Eastern European folk tale. I think Slavic in origin. Yeah, and that's as much as I know.
Baktalo.
Baktalo, the happy one.
The happy one. Well,
That's what it means. At least that's what the story said.
maybe. So if you're interested, you might Google the happy one Baktalo, doing your best at the spelling. And Google it sometimes goes, "Did you mean?"
I know, and to tell the truth, I haven't been able to find it.
Oh, okay.
So I don't really, that's why I
a
can't.
rare.
I'm sure I just don't even remember which friend I found it from. If I did, I'd ask.
Okay, so yeah, stories. So, what drew you to this story in particular, or do you recall?
Well, I really, I read it and went, I have to tell this. I have to. Well, because I loved the gypsies, and I loved talking with the animals. That I really love when animals get to speak their own, which is actually what Frank Baum did in the real Wizard of Oz books. The animals all were intelligent and had their own and spoke English. But anyway, I loved that aspect of it, and I loved the gift from the trees. I love trees. I spent my time outdoors when I wasn't reading. I spent my time outdoors in rural Oklahoma, and we had a river. I would spend a lot of time at the river, a lot of time in the trees, a lot of time out on horseback. But this spoke to me of nature. It spoke to me of the magic of animals, and I just loved that it was all a very nature-oriented folktale, without a lot of human artifice. I'd say the purity of it is what I liked. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yep,
Yes. That the stories speak to you. Fran Yardley, who was here a couple of months ago, told me years ago that finding a story is like making maple syrup. You can start with with maple syrup, you start with 40 gallons and you end up with 1.
Right.
So in story searching, you may have to read 40 stories before one calls to you and says,
I'm yours.
I'm yours. Please tell me and bring me to other ears.
Exactly.
So yes, I think that the first rule of storytelling is only tell stories you love.
That's right.
Yes.
Because what I said to myself is, this is part of me. It's so naturally part of me. I see it. I feel it. And I love the old badger.
Yes, and you did the voices very well, transitioning. That's something I need to concentrate on when I do with it. Who am I before I speak? Who am I? Am I the narrator? Am I the badger? Am I Matuja? A Baktalo? Who am I?
Am I an irritated king?
Yes, right. Yeah. Robin Beatty, whom you probably don't know from.
Oh, I know her.
Oh, from Brooklyn. She said I took a workshop from her before I knew her. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
She said, first get into the body, and then the voice will come. So when the conversation, you need to inhabit the body somehow.
Yes.
That makes sense to you.
Yes.
And that will help your audience determine who is speaking.
Yes.
And then once you're in, the old woman, I need to use that old woman voice. And then the handsome young man. So
That's right.
So those are technical details, which though some storytellers don't do that. I don't know if you ever heard Catherine Wyndham.
No.
She was a storyteller. Well, she was first a reporter. She was a single mother, I think, of 3 children during World War II.
Oh my goodness.
And then on that she was a reporter in Selma, Alabama.
Oh Lordy.
And she just and a ghost that she called Jeffrey shared her home. That rocking chairs would rock by themselves, things would move, and she took, not maliciously, but something.
Not ready to let go.
Right.
Not ready to move on.
So one set of stories that she liked to collect were true ghost stories. But she would tell them in her lovely, wonderful accent. Of course, if she heard me, she would say I was the one with the accent. But anyways, but just and she would just tell it. That was her way.
No, yeah, no embodiment or personification of something.
Just wonderful stories. So, well, now is the time. Oh my goodness, it's time to talk about coming events. There aren't a lot in August. But we do want to mention that Fran will be the featured teller in September for the Interfaith Story Circle. And the topic is endings are, or perhaps beginnings. And it's September, but the date, time, and location is yet to be determined. So do keep up with, you can check their website, withourvoice.org/IFSC, Interfaith Story Circle. But it's not there yet, because I'm their webmaster and they haven't given me the information. But by the beginning of September, I hope that the information would be there. So, and then on vacation until September are the storytelling series. First Monday, Tales and Stuff in Schenectady. As we just mentioned, the Interfaith Story Circle and the Storytelling Open Mic at Cafe Lena, which is there the fourth Tuesday of every month. But not until September. However, what is happening over at Schoharie Crossing, which is in Fort Hunter, which is just west of Amsterdam. And Amsterdam is just beyond Schenectady, so it isn't on the other side of the world, really. But they have a long-standing, 28th annual storytelling series, not just for kids. So speaking to the point that we made earlier, folk tales were not just for kids. They have a fabulous lineup in August of every Sunday night at 6 p.m., rain or shine. Ann Rutherford, who's a storyteller for the Pacific Northwest. Elizabeth Rao, who sometimes spends time up here. Our very own Lorraine Harton-Gilardi, who has been in that chair several times. Sheila Arnold, who's a fabulous storyteller from, I believe it's Virginia. And then September 8th, Labor Day weekend, there is no storytelling. But ending in September 8th is our very own Sandy Schumann. So that's a highlight of the summer for me, to go there. And then up at Weowaka Center for Women on Lake George, there are 2 members of Story Circle who will be giving programs in August. And in August, it's for women only. I will be telling stories about turning points. I'll be sharing true stories of women at turning points in their lives, including how Marilyn Monroe changed Ella Fitzgerald's life by making a phone call, about Congresswoman Martha Griffiths, who worked for women's rights in the 50s when she spent 20 years in Congress in Washington, an elderly woman in Germany right after World War II, as well as many other women, and a story about myself. So I modestly say, once you've heard these stories, you'll never forget them. So Weowaka, that's Tuesday, August 6th, 7 to 8. And then Friday of that same week, August 9th, 7 to 8, Claire Nolan will be doing a presentation on Mother Jones. She will become Mother Jones, who was a labor organizer in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. She was once called the most dangerous woman in America. And also the grandmother of all agitators. So those are programs, storytelling programs that will be up at Weowaka. We like to say that. And you can find out more at their website, weowaka.org, and perhaps going to calendar or searching around. Or you could just find their phone number and call them if you're interested. And then we'll have a meeting, our monthly meeting. Story Circle of the Capital District does not take the summer off. We have monthly meetings where people can tell works in progress. And our meeting in August is on Wednesday, August 21st, 6:15 to 9 at the Pine Hills branch of Albany Public Library, right where Western Avenue and Madison split. Listeners are very welcome. We ask that you tell the stories, not read them. That's for writers' groups. Because when you look in someone's face, you can see, is a channel of communication, has it been established? It's not only can they hear you, but are they getting you? That people who do it in the dark, it's like, oh, you're missing things, folks. You really are. That sometimes the people will shake their heads and you go, yes, you understand what I mean. Yes. Or when they all look at you blankly, like third graders did once when I said, and then there was the Great Depression. I was going, oh my gosh. How do I explain the Great Depression to third graders? And to kill time, I said, do any of you know what the Great Depression was? Not expecting an answer, but one little boy, bless his heart, raised his hand, and I said, yes. Isn't that when everyone was poor? I said, that's a very good way of explaining that. Thank you. But if I hadn't been watching their faces, I wouldn't have known that I had lost them. So that's why storytelling is different than story reading. And then to get you all set for our Story Circle at Proctor's upcoming 13th season, here's a slide on our 5 word plays that we'll be having this season in September, October, January, February, and March, as well as our celebration. And the topics are hope, turning points, kindness, sticky situations, and then this last one, it could be a sticky situation too. Lemons to lemonade. If you've ever spilled lemonade, yes, you understand that could be sticky. And then celebration, it'll be about mountains. And they could be real, or they could be virtual. And they're always, you can get stories on demand by going to our website, storycircle@proctors.org, and clicking on YouTube. Over 200 stories are available. And you can find our TV shows that we record right here in the Colonie Town Library at storycircle@proctors.org, clicking on Story by Story. So that's the upcoming events. We have 12 minutes more. Do you have a story that would fit in there?
Oh, I do. What would you like? Would you like China? Would you like Ireland? Or would you like the Appalachian tale?
Your choice. Your choice.
Well, how about... let's see. We'll take Gallimanders. Gallimanders is from Richard Chase's collection, Grandfather Tales.
Okay.
There was an old lady. She was right mean. But she owned enough property and had a big enough house that she needed help. Now, none of the local people would work with her because she was right mean. So she sent across the sea, and she got herself a girl from England. Now, she said, room and board, and payment at the end of the year. And the girl was so poor, and her ma and the little ones are so poor, she said, Ma, I'll go all the way across the big waters, and I'll help us. And at the end of the year, I'll send you money. All right, darling. And so across the water she went. And didn't that old lady just meet her at the dock? And she got a ride on a wagon from a neighbor because she was too cheap to own her own wagon, too cheap to have her own mule to pull that wagon. And everything she did, she borrowed from someone, but she never did give back. And everywhere someone went, she'd say, can you give me a lift? Can you give me a ride? Can you give me? Can you give me? Can you give me? But she never did give of anything herself. Well, the girl, she knew nothing of that. She brought her little old trunk. There wasn't much in it, just a few changes of clothes and her favorite Bible and some paper to write her ma. Not a lot. So she went home with that woman. And by golly, that was a big old house to take care of. It was stone with a big old long wide porch and a big old fireplace. And she had chickens, and she had hogs, she had a milk cow, and all of this needed taken care of. She had a big wood pile. There was plenty of wood to have to chop. And she told that girl, she said, this here's your little room. And it wasn't no more than a little old closet kind of space, kind of crunched in a corner of the house. Hardly room for a girl to put a dress on and take a dress off. But she said, yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And she was looking forward to the first meal she'd get, but that woman let her know there wasn't going to be no meal until she cleaned. And so she cleaned that whole big old stone house, and she lit the fire, and she said, time for you to make us some dinner. Well, it wasn't a bad dinner. They had themselves some eggs, and she made some corn pone, and she got to eat with the lady, and she thought, well, now this will be all right. She's kind of grumpy, but that's okay, as long as she's fair. Well, she got up, and the next morning she was put to chopping wood, she was put to hauling water, she was put to taking care of the hog, taking care of the chicken, taking care of the cow, and then she had to dust everything, and then she had to wash all the floors, and then she had to get ready to make all the meals. Well, come to be, there was only one good meal a day. That woman was so cheap that they just have plain old flatbread, fried in lard for 2 of the meals a day. And tea and coffee, they was only once a week. The rest of it was just water straight from the well. And the only vegetables they had, well, the ones the girl grew in the garden. But you know what? She was a good gardener. So that old lady ate better than she had in years. She's looking at her going, well, that girl might be worth keeping. And a month went by, and another month went by, and another month went by, and there was no mention of any money. And the girl kind of said, well, ma'am, yes, what is it? Well, ma'am, you said you pay at the end of the year, but is there a possibility that you could pay like once every 3 months so I could send my mom some money? She's pretty poor and there's little ones to take care of. Well, no, I don't do it that way. You're going to have to wait till the end of the year. But my mom has some real needs. And you know what? She spoke up the next week and the next week, and the third time she spoke up, the old lady said, get to your room now, and I'll get you a coin or 2 out. And so she went to her room, and she stayed in there. Then the old lady, come on out now. And then she gave her a couple of coins. Well, now that girl, right quick, wrote a letter off to her ma, had them coins all wrapped up so nobody knew what they were. And then the old lady said, I'll get a ride into town and I'll mail it for you. Well, she actually did. But before she left, she said, I got to get me supplies. And I want to tell you this. Don't you ever look up my chimney. You can do anything else you want in this house. When you're done with all your chores, you can sit and rock in that rocker you like so much. She said, you can wander in them woods, but you keep away from my chimney. Yes, ma'am. She thought that was the oddest thing she'd ever heard. And so the old lady went into town, got some supplies. You know, she'd asked a neighbor for a ride as he went by. She certainly didn't have any conveyance of her own. And all was well. Little girl, she didn't think nothing of it. She had plenty of her own to do, chimneys. It was summer. What'd you carry them out? So it went. And 3 months hence, another packet of coins. And then 3 months later, another packet of coins. But they were just little tiny bits. It wasn't the big payment that was due at the end of the year. And here comes the end of the year. And the girl's so excited, she just can't wait. And she says, ma'am, it's been a full year. It's time for the payment. She said, girl, you ain't getting no more than you've been getting every 3 months. But ma'am, that's not what you agreed to. My mom needs that money. I've been waiting a whole year to help my family. More than this, they just barely making it. Well, you ain't stayed long enough. You ain't proved good enough. You ain't proved well that I can trust you, so you ain't getting the rest of it till I decide. Well, she had to do what she had to do. She got no place else to go. She didn't know anybody else, and it was the only money she could send her ma. So she sent the coins in, sadder and sadder. The next 3 months, same number of coins. The next 3 months, same number of coins. It's 1.5 years now. The next 3 months, same number of coins. This is getting to be really hard. And to tell the truth, if that girl didn't grow good vegetables and know how to put things by, they wouldn't have ate much of anything good. Because only eggs once a day. And the milk, well, they got to drink a little bit, but most of it, the old lady'd take and sell off. Neighbors was mad, so she'd have to give him or sell him milk. Came to be about 2 years. And that girl, she was not only hungry, she was really upset about her ma and her little ones, her sisters and brothers. So, it was a nice warm day, and the old lady said, I got to go into town now. As I tell you every time, don't you be looking up my chimney. Keep yourself busy otherwise. Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And so she did every chore there was and then some. And she sat down. She was so tired. She was a-rocking and a-rocking in the chair. And she was a-knitting as she sat there, trying to make another blanket for one of her siblings when she thought, chimney. Why is she always so crazy about her chimney? Well, it ain't my business. It ain't my business. It ain't my business. Chimney. She went over and she peeked up. Well, there's nothing up that chimney. What the heck? And then she'd cleaned all the ash out. Everything was pretty and nice. And she looked up, and then way up there was a little shelf sticking out, and there was a little string piece of leather hanging down. And she said, she's got something up there. Something she don't want me to see. Well, that's not my business. She tried to knit, but then she went outside and got herself a stick. And she reached up, and she got that little string of leather, and she pulled, and clunk! Right down on the floor of the fireplace, there fell a long leather bag, and it was heavy. And she opened that up, and it was full of gold and silver. And you know what? It was full of coins that she was owed. She had not been paid proper. And that girl thought, she's a mean old thing, and she's not getting any better. I'm getting the same coins. This is not working for me. And she pulled that tight, and she went in and gathered herself a bag, tied everything up in a knot, and she headed out crossing the pasture. And there, out in the pasture, was a neighbor's cow. Mom, girl, I need milking. Oh, please milk me. Well, alrighty. And she milked that cow. The cow said, oh, thank you. She said, I'm trying to get away from that old lady. Can you tell me where to go? Head over by that horse. He'll know. He can help you get where you can get away. And so she ran over across the pasture, and there was a horse, and he was just full of burrs. He said, oh, girl, please help me. Can you get rid of these burrs for me? Nobody been caring for me. And so she took time to take the burrs out of his mane and out of his tail. And he was so happy. He said, how can I help you? Well, I'm pretty hungry. I had to run off real quick. And so she ran over to the apple tree. He said, get over there. The apple tree will let you eat. And the apple tree said, can you pick some of these apples? They're just too many for me. Can you knock some of these branches off? And so she did. And she ate till she was plumb full. And then she went on, and she said, how can I get out of here? He said, go over by the grist mill. You can hide in there. And then the guy there has got a boat. He can take you over to the port. You can catch a ride home to your ma. And so she ran and she hid in that grist mill. That grist mill said, girl, there's a rock stuck and I can't turn. Can you get me and help me? And she did, and the mill started turning. Thank you, girl. Can I hide in here for a little while and rest till the man comes with the boat? Oh, sure enough. Well, that woman came home, and she didn't see no girl. She always saw the girl. And then she looked up her chimney and said, ah! She's got it! And she ran out, and she ran, and she saw the prints in the dust, headed over to the pasture, jumped up and said to the cow, Gallimanders, have you seen a girl go by here with a zig and a zag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver? No, ma'am. So she ran over to the horse. Gallimanders, have you seen a girl run by here with a long leather bag and a zig and a zag and all my gold and silver? No, ma'am, I don't know what she's meaning. And then she bumps into that apple tree, and one knocks on her head, and she says, apple tree, you seen a girl run by here with a zig and a zag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver? No, ma'am, not me. And then she goes over to the mill. Mill, have you seen a girl with a zig and a zag and a long leather rag and all my gold and silver? No, ma'am, I have not. And by that time, the girl was off with the boatman. And that woman screamed and ran, Gallimanders, all the way back home. And never did find that long leather bag with all her gold and silver.
Well, thank you, Fran Berger. You've taken us past the nick of time or whatever, so we have to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you come back again.
Thanks, Kate.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.